four partners, with probably four different personalities.
Yeah.
Four different, I guess, people who do know us know that we are probably large personalities in our own right, and we're all a little bit different. Some may release a little bit quicker than others, and I think there's trust and respect involved there as well. I mean, we mustn't forget that. I mean, if you're going to, encourage your next gen to come through, or your management to come through, you need to be able to, I guess, level a little bit of trust towards them and give them the respect to, hey, you know what, if they make a mistake and they stumble over, you're there to help them and guide them. I know it's warm and fuzzy, but it's actually true. You need to be there for them. You need to be there to support them, even when they make a mistake.
This week I sat down with Rob DiMartino. Rob is an owner and partner of Delray National Food Group, alongside his cousins Mark and Danny. Delray National is a broad-range food service distributor that services metropolitan Melbourne and regional Victoria. In this episode, we discussed all things family business and succession planning. We covered how you facilitate a smooth succession, what the next generation of Delray National looks like, how do you maintain business continuity during the transition, and a lot of other tips and tricks that Rob has gained through his experience. I really found Rob's approach to business management both personable and pragmatic, and took away a lot from this particular conversation, and I hope you do too. Enjoy this week's episode of It's Never About Money. So really happy to be joined by Rob DiMartino from Delray National, and really excited to have you on, Rob. And obviously, we're getting to a point now where we're almost out of lockdown. How are you feeling and how are you faring at the moment?
Well, I guess we've turned to, the energy is now turning to planning to get our business going. So there's a lot more positive talk and constructive talk, rather than going back, somewhat, a month and a half, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And bearing down another negative, I guess, almost like a tsunami coming back at you, because this time you know what to expect. Yeah. We knew what to expect. We kind of braced ourselves, but I think now, Joe, we're starting to begin changing the narrative around the place to make sure that everybody is planning, and it gives them some positivity as well.
Yeah.
So, I think that's where our energy is now. It's going.
And in terms of energy and on a personal front, I mean, with all that's gone on over the last 2 years, how are you feeling? You're feeling well? Are you feeling a bit tired? What's the general vibe down in your neck of the woods?
Look, I think it's a good question. I think everybody, you'd be sort of, you wouldn't be being true to yourself if you weren't really sort of saying it that it does affect everybody, big, large, small, and otherwise, regardless where you are on the ladder in terms of where you are in your business. But I mean, for us, initially, we sort of said we want to set an example. Particularly the owners of the business, we needed to send a message that resonated through our senior leadership team and beyond, that we will get through this. And I think that probably from day one, we didn't really allow ourselves to sit back and feel sorry for ourselves. We needed to go into damage control. We needed to have some urgency around the place, but we wanted to make sure that people understood that we were going to do the best we possibly could to get out of this. So, Joe, in answer to your question, yes, there are some days where you do get a bit exhausted, but we're just so bored. I know it sounds like a bit of a soppy story, but we've got some brilliant employees here, and some long-termers who got behind us and really said, look, we're in with you guys for the long haul. We'll do whatever you have to do in order to assist. And that in itself gives you the, the positive energy that drives you as well. So it's a bit of a two-way thing. So from that aspect, now coming back to a situation where we're seeing, and I guess the difference between going back 12 months ago to now is that, you've got the vaccines coming through, and you've got an exiting plan, which therefore, we're sort of concentrating on.
Yeah. So we'll get to the business in a quick tick, but tell us a little bit about your direct family. And a little bit about yourself generally. Yeah.
Okay, so Delray National Food Group, well, the name Delray is pretty well known in terms of, in I guess within our food service industry, of a food service family. That's one of our slogans, food service family, and everybody knows that we're a bit of a large family, and it sort of goes back to quite some time ago, where my uncle Nick Delray, who happens to be Mark Delray and Rick Delray's father, who are my business partners, started off with a delicatessen in Footscray, and it kind of just started from there, and then just basically evolved to each of us having small goods and cheese, what we call runs, where it kind of evolved, and then it evolved from that to another business, and then in 2004 we decided to join three the smaller businesses, and my cousins. So we're all cousins. We decided to join together and form Delray National Food Group.
So what does Delray National Food Group actually do for those that are listening part of the food industry? Yeah. Sure.
So we're food service distributors. So we're broad range food service distributors. So we distribute all products, frozen, refrigerated and dry products, into cafes, restaurants, pizza market, hotels, catering events. So anything that you would see in those events, we would cover, from, as I say, products that we import to napkins and cutlery and everything that the I guess the venues would require, we supply. So which is getting larger and larger and larger.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was referred to you by James Kostarakis from the Fast Track and part of the Countrywide group collaboration. Can you explain a little bit about how the collaboration of all these food businesses, food distribution businesses, is actually helpful to you?
Well, we belong to a group, and along with James, a group called Countrywide, which is a national buying group, I guess you could say. It's made up of around about 100 distributors nationally, that come together, and I guess their primary objective is to deal with national companies, get them at a national level, and take like a volume of what we do and what we spend to these suppliers, and they have marketing programs that give us an opportunity to be able to take it back to our customers and buy at a more competitive level. But they are independent businesses, and we do deal with these companies on a direct basis, but being part of the group gives, I guess, a larger volume for the suppliers to jump on board with. And then they then send down a rebate, and based on what we buy, the volume we buy, we get a rebate. But I guess for us, the rebates are fantastic, and that's great. It's like any, I guess, co-op, but for us, it's about getting together with other distributors, and we may have touched on earlier about catching up with people face to face. I think as independent distributors, we come together 2 or 3 times a year at national conferences. They're big events, and you get to speak to smaller, large, medium-sized distributors all over Australia, and they might be in the northern parts of Australia, or they may be in remote areas. And I think that doesn't matter how big or small you are as a business, you do learn from people.
So I think this collaboration that I really like, because I often think I draw parallels with my financial planning in the financial planning profession. And, people say, do you catch up with other financial planners? Of course I do. Don't feel like I'm in competition with them. I feel like it's important to collaborate. You get better and you improve. And I think one of the aspects that would be helpful, correct me if I'm wrong, around collaboration is that, most of the food distribution businesses would be having some form of thought around succession, whether it be a thought of, I don't want to deal with it right now, I want to bury my head in the sand, or whether it be, okay, I've got to do something right now. It's like, I'm tired and I need to find somebody to help. I think part of the many reasons that I got you on to have a chat is really around your unique plans for succession. There's a number of aspects to it, but particularly around the fact that you've got so many different succession plans within the same organization, because I believe you've got 4 cousins. Is that right? Working together?
Well, there's 3 partners. There's 4 of us that own the business, and yes. I think each of us, I mean, it's years into planning, I guess, but we've come to a stage now where each of us are sort of, I guess in the process of our own succession planning, and they're all different. They're all one's in Queensland and resettled up there, and comes down for board meetings and enjoys golf and sunshine. Another partner is not working at all. Again, comes in for board meetings, but does car restorations and prestige cars. And I've got another partner who is heavily involved in harness racing and is a hobby trainer, and also sits on the board of the HRV.
Wow.
In Victoria. So he's working 3 days a week, and I'm working 4 days a week. And as it turns out, today is usually my day that I have off, which I have lots of fun with my grandkids and enjoy a game of golf in the afternoon, which I'll be going to straight after this podcast.
Well, I value your time even more so. Geez, I'm taking away from family time, but that's
no, all good, mate. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, so I mean, with all those various, it's with the amount of I suppose specificity and individualization of the succession plans, it would be a challenging thing, I would imagine, to make sure that everyone is comfortable with everyone's roles and that things are being, like the business at the end of the day needs to have continuity. So how, as a principal, what sort of things have you done to make sure that if owners are effectively trying to transition out, or, partially transition out or fully transition out, what takes up the slack?
Joe, I think, in an earlier conversation we had, I did mention that, we are very fortunate. I mean, we didn't decide one day, hey, listen, you know what, let's start a succession plan right now and execute it next month. It genuinely did not work that way. And, there are certain things that, we don't do, via the textbook, and we support each other, and we know, which one, sort of enters that succession planning, and we support that. But again, we're fortunate we've got that next generation coming through who have got that passion and drive to continue the business. And, we'd also have an independent chairman who not only acts as a chairman, but acts as a conduit between ourselves and our kids, who happen to be the senior leadership team. So it works quite well. So we did it over a gradual process, and we've done it over the last probably 2 years. But as I said, we're very fortunate that we can, days like today, I can go away and I know that things are continuing, because, and it's particularly in our industry and many owner operators, because that's basically how we started, owner operators, and that's how many of us still are. It's very, very difficult to let go, because you're wearing all those hats throughout the business, and it's difficult to let that go. So I think that from our perspective, it's been a gradual process, and a process that we're still in the process of doing. So I mean, that next generation is definitely the key, or the staff that you have behind you is definitely the key.
So obviously having an identification of staff, next generation resources, and acumen and talent that can actually assist in moving, filling the gap effectively. But also this idea of the independent chairman is something that I've heard a lot of times with those that have been successful in navigating a succession. Could you talk to us a little bit about the function itself as an independent chairman, and how it's assisted in, with family negotiating sort of succession and leadership change?
Well, I think probably the key for us is, again, myself and Mark, my business partner, who is still, I guess we're sort of...
Mark is your cousin too, right? Is that correct?
Yes, my business partner and myself, Mark Delray. He's probably the senior out of all of us. He's the eldest of the cousins. He's, I guess, the senior out of all of us, and the financial administrator of the business from the outset. So he's still with me, actively in the business to a certain degree. We decided to do a director's course with our AICD 5 years ago, and out of that came a lot of I think we took away from it, being risk registers, succession planning, proper board meetings, more formalised board meetings, and that at that particular stage, we decided to look for somebody outside our family to I guess take it to the next level. So we came across our independent chairman, Tim Fry, and he brought along a lot of experience. He was an ex-CFO of Buller Dairies, and he's originally from England, and he's worked abroad in many countries. And I think that I guess the thing that appealed to us most was his personality and his vibe, and he's a very people's interactive person, very calm person. If you talk about us Italians, we're very
passionate,
very passionate and volatile. But we're always friends the next day.
Yeah.
Parties, and people are used to us around here. You know, we could chop each other up and then put each other back together the next day. Yeah. But now, having Tim, he's he's a great person, great people's person, and he's a very, very good fit for us. So we're very, very lucky to have him, Joe. And I think that's pretty much the dynamic between us and our kids, because we try and take away that bias that exists, with my child or Mark's kids.
Do you think there've been some conversations or maybe some issues that may not have been surfaced, or may not have conversations that may have been quite awkward or acrimonious had there not been an independent chairman involved?
Definitely, because I think that with Tim, he kind of started with us on where we are, how we believe, and what we see for the future, not only the future of the business, but the future of our children in the business. And I think that he would filter through a lot of what would come back, what wouldn't come back to us and cause us any angst or grief or any challenges that we may face. He kind of filters that through.
That's great.
And being such from a corporate background, and having to wear that sort of corporate hat and that real relationship-based person, he does it remarkably well, and it works quite well up to now, Joe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now I know that you've got an individual succession plan that you're working towards. Are you setting about planning what you'll do when you sort of really transition out? And are you worried that at all that any sense of your worth or contribution is really tied to the business?
Look, it is a good question, and I think that the fact that we've got COVID, it sort of confronted us, 18 months ago. We kind of had to put a lot of that succession planning on hold because of the fact that, it required all hands on deck, particularly with myself and Mark, because we were still involved in the business and coming in on a sort of like a part-time and purely acting as a guide. But so it kind of put our individual plans on hold, particularly myself and Mark. But I think that as we're going down the road, and as the senior leadership team's developing, I think we are less and less required, particularly from an operational perspective or even a guidance perspective. So it does work quite well. I'm not saying that every now and again we don't get our nose in the trough, because I think that it's actually in our DNA to do that, particularly in our industry. I can't talk for other industries, but I can say specifically for the food service industries, in suppliers and distributors, other distributors and customers, it's a very much relationship based. So we over the years, over the 35, 36 years, we've had some very long-term relationships. So it's hard to pull yourself away from those relationships entirely as well, and say to those relationships now, okay, so I'm not the person you need to speak to. You need to speak to that person.
So what takes you there, Rob? Like, I reckon this point is a big reason, big reason that a lot of business owners don't get out. They just can't. So what makes you do it? And
I've spoken to distributors who are much bigger than me and directors or who don't have anything to do with the operational side, who still talk to customers on a weekly or daily basis.
Yep.
So, it's the difficulty is that, again, it's in your DNA. It's a very much relationship-based business. It's a very over-serviced business. We over-service our customers. Our business is run on a 24-hour cycle. We don't close, so it's open all the time. So there's that constant working at that speed, and I think that the relationships that you've created over the years want to feel somewhat of safe, and they want to feel that they're not just being looked at as a number, or they're not just being regarded as another customer. So
sure.
It's very difficult for an owner operator, a past owner operator, to then just take himself completely out and say, "Oh, look, sure. You can't deal with me. You just need to deal with the next guy." That is, I think, is something that probably will never ever lose.
No, but I would imagine that you're ahead of the game if you have. I think there's nothing says that you're being looked after than the father bringing in the son and saying, "Hey, this is my son."
Absolutely.
And my flesh and blood, and I trust him implicitly, and I'm going to be here with him whilst you get to build a relationship with him, because I think most people would understand that there needs to be some transition, because at some point there's always going to be a transition, whether it's voluntary or involuntary.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and then that exact example, I can mention many examples that exist like that in our business. That some of our network, some of our contacts, mine is more in the supplier side and more procurement side. My other business partners are more in the customer side.
Yeah.
And we walk hand in hand with our the next generation, our kids, and don't feel as though we've just palmed them off. But as you say, walk in the same line and make them understand and feel as though it's a natural transition.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably something that we've tried to do, albeit it's taken, like this, again, like I say, this is not something that we did, we decided in 1 month and then executed the next. This is something that's probably taken, 3 to 4 years to be fair. It's, that's how long it can take. I mean, that's the way we do it, Joe. People may have other ways of doing it, more corporatise their business a lot quicker.
But a lot of credit to you, because I think we all have egos, and we've developed capabilities and talents, and believe sometimes that it's not possible that others can do it the way that you do it. And you've been able to sort of say, well, I know that this is kind of my ego speaking or whatever, and I need to be able to transition this knowledge to another person. And I think that's a really tough thing to do. I think that's a challenging thing to do.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, obviously, you pick it in one, but then look, I think 4 partners were probably 4 different personalities.
Yeah.
4 different, I guess, people who do know us know that we are probably large personalities in our own right, and we're all a little bit different. Some may release a little bit quicker than others, and I think there's trust and respect involved there as well. I mean, we mustn't forget that. I mean, if you're going to encourage your next gen to come through, or your management to come through, you need to be able to, I guess, level a little bit of trust towards them and give them the respect to, you know what, if they make a mistake and they stumble over, you're there to help them and guide them. I know it's warm and fuzzy, but it's actually true. You need to be there for them. You need to be there to support them, even when they make a mistake, not to stand over the top and I wouldn't do that. You should have done it my way. Well, the reality is that that's not the case. So, yeah.
When you think about the collective businesses within Countrywide, or even think about the business owners that are potentially listening from the It's Never About Money community, what's the single piece of advice you'd give them on the road to sort of handling their own succession?
I guess, again, the difficulty with that is, understanding everybody's individual situation.
Sure.
And, understanding that, some may have next generation. I mean, I do speak to a lot of distributors and have over the years. And, there's quite a few that, that are in my vintage, that are looking to either acquisition out the business, or look at somebody to take them over, or have employed general managers to take their business and have a similar role to me. But I think probably the best advice I can give, and knowing that a lot of them are owner-operators or were owner-operators, or like we were, is that it's a slow transition, and you need to you build it in slow and incremental stages. I think, Joe, that's probably the best advice, because to do it all at once, I don't think they'll be capable of doing that like we were. No. So I think to set a bit of a pattern, and for us, it kind of started 4 or 5 years ago, but it only really came together just prior to the first COVID lockdowns. And it happens over stages. So we kind of looked at our business in a 5-year block, and we started to build our succession planning around that and what we wanted individually out of it. So it wasn't going to be year 1, year 2, year 3. So each of us had an individual plan based around a time frame.
And your individual plan was based upon starting with a 4-day working week, which I'm super interested in discussing and exploring more with you. Obviously, a 4-day working week, 1 day off. That 1 day off, I know that you're an avid golfer. I'm sure you wouldn't have been too happy with the announcement that the golf courses are open, but you can't go to the loo. So, which was a bit strange. But could you talk us around?
I said that to somebody earlier in the day, that all the toilets are closed at the golf courses, so a bit of improvisation.
Improvisation, yeah, it's a word, yeah.
Look, I guess from my perspective, I looked at, I'm in year 3 of that succession planning, to be fair.
Yeah.
So the first year and a half was, releasing some of the responsibilities and what I regarded, and we sort of go back to, giving sort of passing on, what ways of doing it. From my perspective, I looked at what I regarded as my strength in the business and what I knew that we needed to look after, and for me to feel comfortable that, hey, listen, you know what, this is being looked after, regardless whether I'm here or not. It's being looked at. It took probably about a year for me to sort of start to feel that way. So as I said, there was sort of on a bit of a halt at the moment with lockdowns and so forth. So we kind of had to roll our sleeves up over the last 12 months individually. But I guess from my perspective now, I can feel as though, okay, yeah, we are coming out of lockdown, but I can be away for at least 1 day a week, and I choose a Friday because it sort of works around my own personal needs in terms of spending time with my grandchildren, and with the opportunity of playing golf now, we'll go ahead and do that. But it's a well-known in our industry that they call it Muck Up Friday. I'm being nice about the first word, because usually something goes wrong in our industry.
Yeah, right.
It's wrong on a Friday, so
perfect Friday, perfect take off Fridays. Then it sounds like.
Exactly. So
less stress.
But as I said, we're very fortunate. We've got people who are vested in our interest here and making sure that things get done.
Seemingly, there's a culture. I think it's less so these days, especially with the next generation. But there's certainly a culture of, you ask someone how they are. Yeah, very, very busy as kind of like a badge of honor. And, this kind of workhorse mentality, which I think has a lot of positives. I mean, obviously a good work ethic is very important, but I suppose the negative associated with that is the kind of guilt associated with slowing down for some. I wonder whether that guilt has ever been felt by you around, maybe I need to be, doing the 5 days and maybe not quite yet ready. And, how do you actually stop? Because a lot of people will be listening to you going, oh yeah, that's a really great idea. 10 years later, they're like, it's the same story, 5 days a week. And they probably, for their health and so many other reasons, might have needed to slow down. Yeah. So,
Yeah, look, I think that's probably why I say, Joe, that I think it needs to be addressed slowly. and incrementally. It needs to be done. You need to release yourself off one thing and then the next thing and then the next thing.
Yes.
I think that's probably the way I feel it's worked for us. So you need to find what you regard as the biggest priority and the biggest important thing in your business, and have just put them in priority order, and then start to release your responsibility and give that responsibility to somebody else, but do it whilst you're there and you can guide them through it. Again, I think it's worked for us. But having said that, again, next generation, they're passionate and they're driven. So we can do that perhaps a little bit easier, with a little bit less stress than what it would be if they weren't family or next gen, or not invested in have that passion.
Well, you talk about the next generation. Again, this is why I'm excited to chat to you. Strong family, kids involved. Please give us a bit of an indication about the kids that are, the adult children that are working with you, and how that all works.
I think that again, there's four partners in the business, and each have children. I mean, like we can start with Danny in particular. He's probably the youngest. He's the youngest out of all of us, and he's when he moved up to Queensland, his kids were a little bit young. So from time to time, we have a lot of family working here, not just our own siblings, but nephews and nieces, and
oh wow, okay.
A lot come through here and use it as a way of, through their university or through getting another job. Some have stayed on, some are long-term, some are not. But I think from our perspective, it went that way, whereas Danny's children were sort of up in Queensland and had a little bit less to do. Rick's kids have come through the business, have elected now to just move on to other areas. Myself, I have two children. My son is a commercial head of commercial here, and Mark's son is head of operational, and we have another one of Mark's sons here who is in the procurement role and sits between both areas. So it's been like I guess a challenge to get them there, but we had a lot of help with external help to get them into the right position. But the other thing I think that works well with us, and again, I can't speak for other organisations or other businesses, but with us, with Delray National, each of us, myself, four partners, each had strengths, and I think that's probably the most liberating thing when we joined, was that we could go off and do what we wanted to do. As being an owner operator in a small business, you're wearing all the hats. You're wearing, debt collection. You're wearing, you're wearing the sales. You're wearing the, operational side. So you're wearing all these hats. And I think once we joined together, we all went out on our strengths. And I think that's probably been one of the keys to our success over the years and our development. And I think we're equally as fortunate as in that the children that have come through, or the siblings that have come through, have each gone to the areas where they feel that they can offer their strengths.
Yeah. So on that, I think it's quite different where leadership dictate and denote where children go based upon the perception of talent, whereas where the children actually define what they believe that they're talented as. Is that the case? That's what happened? Or?
Yeah, look, I think it's a bit of a combination of both. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's we again, like I said, a lot of what we've done hasn't necessarily been out of the textbook, but I think it's just been an evolving thing. And there's we don't like to pigeonhole the kids coming through the business as well. So I can tell you now, for a start, they haven't been given a privileged position as such. Each of them have worked night shift. Each of them have worked out on the road doing deliveries. Each of them have worked in the warehouse, loading trucks. So, they've definitely come from the ground up. And I think that's a necessity in this business. I think you need to understand how it actually works from the bottom up in order to I guess, graduate through and make the correct decisions going through when you get to, I guess, a better level. And the other thing is true, as part of, formalising our board, one of the things we put together was a family charter. So
with an independent person putting a family charter together for you as a
that was done by the legal team. So and that sort of holds as of today. So there's different levels of where any sort of relations or siblings can come into the business. So I think that's just so that we can protect the interests of the business more so than anything else, I think.
Which in the end protects the family. So it's a chicken and egg thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you with so many family members and maybe some non-family members mingling there, how do you manage personal relationships when disagreement or conflict arises in the business context? Is that something that you've I mean
the old Italian way?
Thought you might say that.
He screams louder, usually wins.
Yeah, well, yeah.
No, look, I think that again, it's that respect. I mean, you know, we try to. This is where I think Tim, our chairman, is so valuable that he can take the heat out of a situation and can bring it down to a level that everybody can understand and try and work out. Listen, sometimes it just doesn't work out and we just have to move on with moving on. But I think that he plays a big role, particularly in that. And he's got the great ability to bring everybody's views into the discussion. And anything that's a little bit too hard, Joe, we send straight to the board, and nothing gets decided in corridors. But things that we know that we just need a quick decision on, we sort of make that quick decision on, and we guide them through. But there's not a lot of those instances to be totally honest, mate.
Is that because there's a fairly significant amount of transparency around the vision, the values, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that the next gen, I keep saying next gen, but and I'm not allowed to call them kids apparently, but that's
I think I called them children. I apologize.
That's I guess that's something that they feel that they have achieved or are achieving. They're achieving. They're bringing that culture that we've set from the outset and bringing it through. And although they've got differences in the way they execute their leaderships, but they also have that family first attitude, and that's resonated through all our employees. We don't have a lot of turnover of employees, to be fair. I think that's something that we pride ourselves on, and we try to make sure that our employees are looked after, and various ways of doing that. I'm sure many businesses do it throughout our industry. Just looking after them in just having catch-ups and social events, and just trying to sort of keep them as close as we can to our family, family thought process.
That's fantastic. I feel exactly the same way. I think anyone that works within our business is an extension of our family, and we treat them the same way we would. And it's really, really important. Makes it a joy to come to work, to be honest. Really want to put an arm around the "it's never about money" community and talk about a little bit about the pandemic, because we often talk about the positive aspects of everything, but there's some very real struggling that's going on out there in the business community. And I just wanted to touch on how the business has the pandemic has impacted the business, and whether or not you've had to make any pivots or changes during this particular period of time.
I guess like most businesses in the country who were affected, we go back when it first happened over a year and a half ago. Everybody was sort of looking at a cliff, I think, in terms of business. Saying, well, it's definitely a cliff, but how far is it going to fall? And I think from the outset it was quite drastic, and it was like, okay, what do we actually do? Who's left? Who's going to be still operating? How are they going to be operating? And I think that our market started to readjust itself. So from our perspective, from the first week we dropped 60%. Wow. And then gradually started to come back, because we do a lot of the in our particular business, we do a lot of the takeaway business. So as our customers started to readjust and repivot themselves, we did accordingly. Obviously we had to reduce our staff. We have 25 trucks on the road. We went from 25 to 6 or 7 in the first week. And then so gradually built that up, worked with our customers, got a greater understanding of what their needs were and how they changed. They went, particularly went from a restaurant style business sitting down to full takeaway. So their needs changed, their menus changed. So we had to change with that. And I think it's, we sort of looked at the retail market thinking, okay, so because our business is not based in retail. So we sort of thought, okay, so we've got some great network. Maybe we can utilize that in order to, and great products, maybe we can put that into the retail market. But I think, and we started looking at, deliveries online at home, which we did. And they weren't a great success, but we found that, as we readjusted to our customers readjusting to their customers in takeaway space, it became stronger. And, the impact wasn't as great as it was from week one, and just gradually grew until we come out of lockdown. But most businesses, we try to protect our employees, communicate with them, have town hall meetings virtually on a daily basis, updates, because I think that was important from the outset. We asked our managers and to continually talk and make sure that they understand that we are there for them in any way. And that even goes from, look, you need some food, or you need something, you need shopping or whatever, go ahead, just don't worry, we'll work it out later on, take whatever you want. So we did go down that road, Joe, because it was a pretty drastic thing that happened to all of us, I think. So there was
you'd be forgiven, Rob.
Yeah.
At a 60% drop in revenue, you'd be forgiven for it to change attitudes and behaviours within the business. How did you feel you went in terms of how was the staff morale? How did you, you've talked about a little bit about how the types of things that you did to try to get through it. But it's an interesting test piece when revenue drops by that margin. It really tells you what you're doing right and what needs to be improved. So,
yeah, again, I think communication was key. Communication with our employees, our customers, our suppliers, and constantly sort of just working on it, readapting what we were doing, and reinventing ourselves, and trying to get somebody who was doing a job in a particular area to train them up to do a job in another area, so we could keep them going. So it was being agile and being as flexible as you could possibly be in every way.
Was there an element of the actual owners having a look in and the things that perhaps they previously didn't put their hands on, and letting the next generation take reign, that you guys started to get more involved again when there was such a significant drop? Or was there a mindset to allow the next generation to kind of, take over some of this?
Well, it is a good question. I guess probably what I can say is that in this period, we did look at ourselves, particularly myself and Mark, who were still sort of, I guess, involved in the business in some ways. We let them be managers, and we kind of said, look, you know what? This is going to be a very good learning for these guys. And they're going to come out the other end of this, provided we give them the right guidance and not panic, and reassurance that, hey, we're in for the fight. We then played a little bit of a role of, rolling our sleeves up and saying, where do you want us? Where would you like us to be? What would you like us to do? Where do you, and they kind of come up with specific areas where they channeled us into. And they might have been things that, took us back to when we first started, but we were happy to do that because it sent a message to not just to them, but to everybody in the business that we're here with them. So we're in the trenches, and they're going to be sort of working as hard as they can and doing whatever it takes in order to get this back on track.
This is fantastic. Actually, that's how it happened. I was packing rice packs for our retailer store, which it's no problem. That's not a problem. Let's just do it. We opened up our retail shop and we got that going, and I was serving customers down there. It was great, but it was good for our employees to see and understand that we're going to be in there for the fight alongside them. So we're not asking them for an extra 10 or 20%. Just alone, we're going to put an extra 10 or 20% if possible. But also just also allowing the next generation to take, ownership, and giving you the confidence and the clarity that, when succession actually does occur, that they've been through a pretty tumultuous and challenging time. It's a sink or swim situation, and they swam, and that, if anything, should give confidence to the owners that the succession can take place at some point.
That's right, and I think the message that we sent through to them was, looked at specific areas. Our board meetings become more frequent. We had more higher level discussions about the financial areas of our business, and what we tried to do was to take all that sort of responsibility off them and say, you keep focused and keep your eye on the ball. We got you covered on this side. You guys just keep going with what you need to do in order to keep the business running. We're not going to fall over. Keep going. And I think that gave them the sort of the strength to and the focus to keep that going. So yeah,
fantastic. So what keeps you up at night, and what's still to do?
Look, I think like everybody, Joe. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty around what happens next. I mean, we hear about in the media, and we talk to people and to customers and to suppliers, and everybody's concerned about the state of play. Our industry is going to be the challenges are going to be businesses who have been out for nearly 2 years and try and reignite a small little business. What does that mean for them? So our customer base may reduce to a certain, and you'll see some really good, great businesses, great concepts, not survive. Unfortunately, on the other hand, you've got from a supply perspective or manufacturer's perspective, there's a lot of uncertainty around volumes and what's coming in from overseas. For example, we've got an import arm to our business. I mean, that's something that sort of keeps me awake at night, because the cost of bringing product over is getting a lot greater, and trying to get product at all. So things that are beyond our control is probably something that sort of keeps me awake. So we're constantly looking for ways and looking for avenues to secure our business going forward. And I think that's probably the biggest challenges that we face, going forward, and that's stuff that's out of our control.
So it sounds like there's an exit mechanism from a personal exertion point of view, but it's very difficult to have an exit from a mental disconnection point of view, if that makes sense. You can't hide from that, because at the end of the day, you're still a business owner, and you've still got responsibilities to your business. You're a director. You're still governance there. I mean, we're still, our heads are still buried in that aspect of our business. There's no doubt about it. We've just used this latest lockdown as an opportunity to grow and develop our business in other areas, such as a new ERP system that's going to bring this business into the next 10, 20 years. We're looking at other initiatives, doing some development inside the warehousing, putting on a automated warehousing system. So, we're not sort of stopping and working on and spending on the business to make sure that when we do come out the other side, we're ready for it. So, there's still a lot of work to be done, Joe. I certainly don't want to give the impression that, I'm playing golf every day of the week, because you're not giving that impression, Rob. You're not giving that impression.
But certainly from an operational perspective, we're in good hands. I really believe that, and that does not keep me awake at night. Not at all.
Well, Rob, this has been great. Much respect and credit to you for your handling of your own succession and bringing in the next generation. I think there's a lot of things to be learnt off your experience, and I'm sure our community will really, really enjoy listening to this particular episode for all the value that's in it. But before we finish, I just wanted to ask you, what's your spirit animal, the animal that embodies you, and why?
Well, that's an easy one, because I guess anyone who knows the Delray family know that, yes, we do love our sport. We're mad AFL but so I have to say it's either a bulldog, but unfortunately losing to the Demons a couple of years ago, we're still licking our wounds, so to speak. But look, I think a thoroughbred horse, mate.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, good on you. Thanks for coming on.
Good on you. No worries. Thank you very much, Joe.
I hope that this one was enjoyable to listen to and there were some moments of value. If you have resonated in any way with the sentiments of this podcast, we would be delighted to direct you to our website, www.itsneveraboutmoney.com.au, for more free resources and education aimed at improving your capacity to make sound financial decisions for the benefit of your family. We wish you every success, however you define it.